All right, this is the homework video for worksheet 2-4 for the class Language of Algebra, the class where we talk about how to break down word problems, how to write equations, how to just communicate algebra. All right, so in this one we were talking about word phrases, and we will either we have or we will transition into word problems. Some things that I want to point out if you're in this class is that number 9 is gone on this worksheet. If you are in a newer version of this class, you have a number 9. I took it out in the later versions of this class because it's the same question as number 5. Another thing is if you have a earlier version, you might not have a comma here. You need a comma there. Okay, so if you're not in this class and you want to be in this class, look down in the description and click on the link and you can sign up for this class. If you're in this class, pause the video and grade your worksheet right now. All right, I'm going to assume that you're done grading and you're ready to move on how I got these answers. So let me change my color, zoom in, and we will get started. All right, so we're first going to look at these 3 problems. So in this class, we do not do decimals and fractions as far as learning how to do it. If you look at the description of this class, that signing up for this class, you're assuming you already know these skills. But, sometimes we get a little rusty. So if you're having problems with these skills, usually when I do this worksheet with students, I also post in the classroom a link to my crash courses. They're one-day only crash courses that are meant to remind you how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions. Okay, and later in this class, I will introduce some decimals into some problems, especially when we start talking about money. And I'll do the same thing with those crash courses. So if you do this worksheet and you found these first 3 problems very difficult to do, you need to take that crash course, okay? And like I said, it will be in the description. So when we add fractions, we have to find a common denominator. And that is the number that all of these can go into. When in doubt, just take your 2 highest numbers, multiply them together, and see if the third number will go into it. In this case, it will. So our common denominator is 12. All right, so to get this to 12, I have to multiply it by 6. So I'm also going to multiply the top by 6. To get this one to 12, I have to multiply it by 4. So I'm going to also multiply the top by the 4. To get this one to 12, I got to multiply it by 3. So I'm also going to do that one, which is going to give me the fractions of 6 over 12, 4 over 12, and 3 over 12. Okay? Then all I have to do is add across or subtract across the top. So I'm going 2 plus 4 minus 3. 2 plus 4 is 10, minus 3 is 7. All right? 12 is just along for the ride, and the answer is 7/12. So I actually, look at that. Sometimes I do this, I get the wrong answer. Okay, I think I added the last one too. That is exactly what I did. I must have, when I did it, dropped that negative, or I was taking it off of an old worksheet where that used to be a positive. So don't remember when I made this key, but it was one of those common mistakes that I make. Okay, I would also like to show you a different way, because some people do these different ways. Okay, and I'm not here to change the way that you do these, because this isn't a skill that we learn in this class. So the answer is 7 over 12x, but I want to show you another way of doing it. So let's go back to start. If the way I just did it is the way you do it, you can fast forward through this to question number 2, but I do want to show you another way. All right, if you do not like working with fractions, you can get rid of the fraction, and I'm going to do this way in a different color. So if you have my daughter likes to do my videos in layers, so she can see all the layers on top and then go back through. So she puts it through a program like that, so I want to do it in a different color, just in case you do that. If I know what the common denominator of all of these are, I can multiply them all by the common denominator. Okay, and if you cross cancel, then this is the way you want to do it. So I want to take 12 times 1/2 x, plus I want to take 12 times 1/3 x. Remember, I can, just like I can make a fraction I can multiply it by something to make it a common denominator. This is the same thing. It's just going to make equivalent fractions. The big thing is with this is if I'm going to multiply 1 by a number, I have to multiply them all by that number. And if you cross cancel, you will get this. And then you will get 6x plus, you will get 4x plus, you will get 3x minus 3x, okay? This is just a way that some people do this that I've seen in my classes, all right? We still know that the common denominator is 12, but now we can go 6 plus 4 minus 3, and that is still going to give me 7. Okay? This is just a way that I see people do these expressions. It is not the way that I teach it if I were to teach it in class for the first time. But I don't know which way you've been taught because you might not necessarily have taken my hands-on with rational numbers or my pre-algebra class. Those are the two classes that I go over this skill. The pre-algebra class will actually go over it in an algebraic way, whereas the hands-on fun with rational numbers does not. Neither does my crash course. It just talks about the skill. But this is a way that I've seen students do it, and so I wanted, whichever way you do it, these are the two most common I've seen in class, and they both will give you the same number, so you can do it either way. All right, and this one I have to distribute. All right. And I don't really talk about distributing in the crash course. I do talk about pre-algebra part 1, but I don't do it with this variable. I don't do that until pre-algebra part 2 and pre-algebra part 4. I kind of circle that particular skill. We do it at the very end of pre-algebra part 2, and then we pick it up again in pre-algebra part 4. We take a break for a geometry lesson because I lay out my pre-algebra curriculum in 2 years for people who want to take it in 2 years. I generally push it for 6th and 7th graders, but you can do it in 5th and 6th. Okay, so anyway, this is the answer, but the way that I do it is I take 2/3 times the m, and then I also distribute it to the 6. You should know the distributive property by this class. If you don't, please, please, please comment to me that you don't know that one. I don't actually have a distributing property class. I have a list that I want to make YouTube videos for all of the properties of math. So eventually, if I'm teaching this class and I have those videos made, then I will put them in the classroom. All right, so now I just multiply 2/3 times m is just 2/3 m, and this one is 2/3 times 6, which I have to put a 1, and then it's a 4. 2 times 2. And if you don't know how I did this part right here, you need to take my crash course in multiplying and dividing fractions. So the classes you want to look for, if you had trouble with this one, is my crash course in adding and subtracting fractions. So they're two different crash courses, 1 day only, 55 minutes, not too bad, okay? All right. So now we have number 3. And again, this one is going to actually put together both of those skills, adding and subtracting, as well as multiplying and dividing. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is distribute. And we talked about distributing a long time ago, just not with fractions. So, and if you're having trouble with these negatives in here, the crash course you want is crash course with negative and positive numbers. And this is when I start posting all these in the classroom. So you should see, if you're having trouble with worksheet 2-4, these are the crash courses you should take. All right, so if I distribute this through, I'll go ahead and put the double signs. 1/2 times the 4 is going to give me 2. Okay, when I distribute this one through, I also got to take that sign with it, like I did with the first one, and that's going to give me a negative 2/5 x. And then for the other one, I'll go ahead and put the double signs. It's going to give me a negative 2 as well. Okay, and if you didn't understand that multiplication with the fraction, again, this is the class you want to take. If you're having trouble with the negatives and positives, this is the class you want to take. All right, so now we have to get our like terms together. So I have this one and this one, which means two negatives mean I'm going to add, but I need common denominators. So this one is going to be 5/10, which 5 is half of 10, so that's why it's the equivalent fraction. And this one's going to be 4/10, okay? All right, so I'm going to add them together and make it negative. All right, so those two are done. Now this one, I have some double signs, so I want to actually make them subtraction. Remember, different signs subtract, same sign add when I have those double signs beside each other because it follows the rules of multiplication. Again, this is your course if that was confusing. All right, so a negative 2 minus 2, adding up my debt, it's going to be a negative 4. All right, and that was adding and subtracting fractions as well. So again, these are the 3 crash courses you need to look into if you're having trouble. All right, so now we get into these algebraic expressions with fractions, okay? So we definitely probably learned this in the class before you take this, but these are just different ways that we can write fractions, how to identify them in phrases. So 1/3, okay, I have that right here. Of means to multiply, Q, that's what I'm modeling right here. And then remember, is added to the product of. The product of means parentheses with multiplication. I'm using a dot because we're in algebra, 9 and z. 2/3 is a fraction. Of means it's multiplied 2. I can write things right beside each other because of that parenthesis, and that also means multiplication is going on right here. So I could put a dot 2 if I just wanted another way, but those parentheses also mean multiplication. The sum of is parentheses, and I put my Q and my 8 inside the parentheses, and sum, that means adding. Minus the product of, we have another parentheses, and that has a 7 and a G in it, but it should be minus on the outside and a product on the inside. I need to change some colors, don't I? Let's raise these arrows and get a little bit more. So for this one, 2/3 of means to multiply. Okay, now let's do inside the parentheses. So the sum of, sum means addition, of means the sum of means the parentheses. So that's where these parentheses come from the sum of. Okay, now after the parentheses we have a comma after that 8, which means it's outside of the parentheses, and we need to change our color to blue because it says minus. That's this minus right here. The product of, I should have changed my color, so I'm going to do that now. I'm going to do it in gray. The product of is another set of parentheses here. Okay, and inside the parentheses I'm going to have multiplication, and it's going to be a 7 and a G. All right, 1/3, okay, which is described right here. Multiplication, again, I can put a dot, but the parentheses kind of do the job, all right? And then inside I have, because remember, this means parentheses with addition, and I have 4 and a P. Half is the fraction 1/2, okay? The sum of, which means parentheses, and M and 5. This time I write out 1/2, and of means multiply. The difference of is going to mean parentheses, and I have P minus 7. Difference means 7. It means minus. All right, so that's all of this worksheet. Keep practicing it until you feel good about it and come back and watch the next one.